I mean, they were arguably a favorite after the Kevin Durant trade. They were arguably right there. Obviously, you could say they gave the Nuggets their best run for their money in the playoffs, actually taking them to 6 games. Now you lose the point guard. You bring in honestly a Bradley Beal very similar to Devin Booker in that they're both high volume, very good shooting scorers. Now you have safe to say, three of the top 10 scorers in the NBA, maybe something in that area,
I
all on
mean,
one team.
three dudes that can go get their own bucket at any point in time from anywhere on the floor. So yeah,
Absolutely, like no piece of hardwood is safe when they're on the floor for that they can't score from. My question too is who's going to bring the ball up the court? We saw last year Devin Booker did a pretty good job as a point guard. He gave you about eight to 10 assists during his time. But is that something you want to do full time? Do you put Bradley Beal at point, or is this going to look almost like the Celtics last few years? We got those elite wings, but you're kind of having trouble with the ball control, ball carrying. So I am curious to see how these pieces all fit together. But initially, when you look at it, does this make them the best in the West, or how do you see them falling into place after this?
I mean, they were already considered one of the top two, three teams in the West right now, anyways. With just KD and Booker. Obviously, you do bring up a good point. Who's going to bring the ball up for the Suns? And let's be very honest here. Don't be surprised to possibly see a Chris Paul reunion situation here if he gets bought out and signs for the veteran minimum here with the Suns. Completely possible. It's something that you have to look at. Any one of these free agents on the market, Ish Smith could come in and do it. I mean, don't forget they still have Campaign. We know what he can do. Given his opportunity, obviously more of a scoring point guard, but he's more than capable of bringing the ball up and handing it off to one of these three stars and superstars, however you want to classify them, and really just let them do the work. So, am I going to call them the best? No. You got to beat Jokic, and they still don't have any way to beat Jokic at this point in time. But a solid 1B in the West? Yeah, I'd give them that. I mean, a solid top 5 team in all of the NBA? Absolutely. But we all have to see how it all works. We've seen this before where teams can get an all offensive world team and then it just sucks. There's just awful. It's just awful, and then somebody gets traded and then it works. But I mean, it's happened before with KD on the team. So looking at you, Brooklyn. So I'm not going to say it's going to be absolutely perfect right now, but there is a possibility that they could usurp the currently crowned Denver Nuggets. But I mean, it's going to take a lot of work. You got to figure out a way to stop Jokic, and that's not an easy task because the one thing all three of these guys really struggle with is not offensively, but defensively staying locked in for 48 minutes.
Absolutely. That's a tough task for anyone as well. We got to see how they mesh together, and we got to see them stay healthy as well. Kevin Durant and Beal have had a little bit of injury concerns in recent
Don't forget Book's ankles and wrists.
You got to keep an eye out on that. So we got to see him get healthy. We got to figure out the DeAndre Ayton situation with them too. Like, is he going to stay? Is now that Monty Williams out of there, is he good to go? Like, I got to figure out that dynamic as well. Do they move him to maybe supplement to get more parts, like trade him and get 4 pretty good players throughout the whole thing? I will say though, you mentioned Chris Paul coming back, which if he does, that's a brilliant move for the Suns. But if the Wizards just buy him out, they need to get smacked upside the head even harder. What they should do, I saw this recently. Worst case scenario, if you can't move him now and get anything good, you keep him on the team and you say, hang out at home. You're getting paid. This is fully guaranteed. Don't worry. Come to practice if you want. Just keep yourself healthy. Wait till that trade deadline. Wait till Christmas, something like that. Find a team that's maybe even the Lakers per se. Maybe it is the Suns, kind of fluctuating, needs a point guard. But see if you can get a little bit more for a team that needs his services a lot more. That way you get more in return. He gets to stay healthy, which at nearly 40 years old and being a smaller player, no matter whose team he's on, if I trade for him, I'm telling him not to play till like January anyway. Like, we're just like, you know what? You're going to play once a month or maybe once a week, if that. Like, we're keeping you healthy because we need you for the playoffs. We can't have a pulled groin when it's 2-2 or in the Western Conference semis again. Like, you can't have his untimely injury. So either way, whatever they do with him, I think they could play it smart and get something in for Chris Paul. But if the Suns could pull that off, so you have Chris Paul, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Ayton, it's a smaller lineup at the top, but it gets pretty lengthy at the back end, and good luck dealing with all of that. That's a lot of rotation you'd have to do.
Yeah. And let's not forget, I mean, like we talk about Chris Paul, if it does end up that he ends up back up in the Suns, or like you just said, like, looking at this beyond beyond the Bradley Beal aspect of this, if you do look at it as what Chris Paul could do for somebody, I mean, you talk about maybe the Lakers being that potential piece for the Lakers. That's absolutely fantastic piece. Maybe look at the Bucks potentially here. If, the Wizards buy him out. But I do think the Wizards, if they do make a move, they might not buy him out. And that might be a smarter thing to do and wait until the trade deadline. But don't be surprised instead of trying to get like a player or, something like that, they go for draft picks.
Oh yeah,
Try to
they need.
try to get younger, and more talented as these years go by. Because right now you're not getting anything from these old dudes that you keep bringing in. And I say old dudes, but Kuzma's what 25, so not that old, 26. So it's like they're not that old, but they're not good. I mean, they're not. They don't have a single person on the team right now that you can say is my franchise player.
That's kind of one thing
Like
they're
they
missing.
traded Rui, that was going to be that dude, and they traded Rui.
That's it. That's the one thing they really. What makes it hard about this rebuild is they don't really have that one player where it's like, all right, we got this. We will build around this. We'll find a way to keep climbing. Like you had Shea Gilchrist Alexander in Oklahoma City as they started coming up. Sacramento, you had De'Aaron Fox. Some of these other teams that have recently kind of been on the build. Minnesota, if they try and do that, you have Anthony Edwards. They had Carl Anthony Towns for a while. Knicks with Julius Randle. Like you had an all-star caliber player where you looked at as like, all right, we got something. Let's kind of get it going. Brooklyn now has Mikal Bridges. So like they got to find a
Yeah,
way to
which
get
by the
that.
way, talk about an underrated trade there.
Yeah, go.
I mean,
Yeah,
Michael
exactly.
Bridges with the Nets. Ooh.
That worked out pretty well, and I think that one worked out pretty nicely. So we definitely got to keep an eye on to see what they like to do. But I think we're kind of in agreement. Suns probably a top two team in the West on paper. We'll see how that changes once they actually start playing. Because we said that about the Nets for 3 years. We said about the Clippers for 3 years. A lot of these best teams on paper have yet to even reach a conference final. So we'll have to wait and see how they